Hi there everybody and welcome back. My name is Alien and in this video we're going to see how to make a beginner-friendly website, which can be ideal for you if you are just beginning to learn front-end development. We'll create a single product website using only HTML, CSS and Bootstrap. Throughout this tutorial we'll cover all the essential components your website needs. From setting up a navigation menu to formatting images and icons, we'll walk through the process step by step. You'll learn how to structure your content effectively and make your site responsive across various devices. This is actually one of the first projects I have personally built when I first started programming. So let's just get started. So firstly, let's just create a folder to store our files in. I'm just here in my desktop, I'm creating a new folder. I'm naming it single product, since we're making a single product web page. And I'm going now to the VS Code. I'm opening the folder that I just created here. Let me find it. Okay, so here's our empty folder. Let me just increase the view a bit. Let me just zoom in. Okay, so firstly I'm just going to create an HTML page. I'm just naming it index.html, and to just create some boilerplate code, I'm just adding the exclamation mark here, and then I'm hitting enter. Here we have the structure for a basic HTML page. And firstly what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and grab the Bootstrap files that we're going to need for our project that we're actually going to use. So just go to getbootstrap.com, here in the documentations, here in this section here. Firstly, we need to grab the link to link our file to the Bootstrap CSS file and input it here in the head section. And we're also going to need to grab the script tags to link our project to the JavaScript file of Bootstrap. So just like that, we're inputting it before our body ends. And here we have imported the Bootstrap to our file, and let's just begin coding. I'm just going to change the title here. I'm just making the title of our web page, what we see in the tab, to be store. And let me just run our project here. I'm just going to open it with live server, and we should basically just see an empty file with the name store in the tab here. And let's just begin creating our web page. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to go and grab the navigation menu from Bootstrap. We're going to create a navigation menu here with basically just two pages. We're going to have a home and an about page, and you're going to see how we can actually use a navigation menu and how you can link this to other pages. So this is actually pretty simple with Bootstrap. Just let me find here the section, the documentation for the navigation. Here it is, Navbar. And let me just grab a simple navigation here. I think this is fine. Let me just copy it, go back to our project, and I'm inputting here in the beginning of our body. And let's see what we have here. If I just save the file, you should see this navigation menu, this nice toggle button that when the screen is small, the menus are not shown here, but they can be displayed with this toggle button here. And we can see we have a home page, a features page. So basically these are the items of our navigation menu, and I'm just gonna delete a few of them. I'm just gonna leave two. Let me just leave these two last list elements. And basically, as you can see here, how this is structured, it's a navigation element, and then inside here we have all of these links. We have basically in the beginning like a link here with the name of we see Navbar here, but here is basically where we write an icon or like the name of our web page. And then down below we have a button here, this toggle button that just makes it possible to show the navigation items when the screen is small, as I said. And here we have an unordered list with a few list elements, and all of them have these Bootstrap classes. What I'm gonna do right now, I'm just gonna change the name of these links. So we're gonna create a bit later an about page, but I'm just gonna write about here for now. And as we can see, we have now a home and an about. Navigation items, I'm also gonna link now this. Let me just substitute this navbar here with like the name of our web page. I'm just gonna name it stores. I haven't thought of a name for our store right now, and what we would want to do is we would want to link this here with the link of the web page, so that when the users are on different pages, if they click on the name of the page, they will be redirected to the home page. So basically I'm just writing to this href attribute the name of the index.html, which is the name of the file that we want to be displayed there, and we're gonna put this href attribute also on this first navigation item here that takes us to the home page, so index.html. And basically that was how simple we can import and like modify the navigation menu from Bootstrap. What we're gonna do now, after this navigation menu, I'm just gonna take a container div, and here firstly I'm gonna, in the first section of our web page, I'm just gonna input like some text and an image to our product. So I'm just gonna need a row div, and inside of it a couple of columns. So div elements with the column class. Just save it. Here in the first part I'm just gonna input like a header, an h1 header with some text like the watch you have been waiting for. And underneath I'm just gonna input like a div with basically only $300 with a price. Underneath I'm gonna have a button as well, and I'm giving it, let's just make the text of the button to be buy now, and I'm giving it some classes, some Bootstrap classes to make the button a bit better looking, and to give it like a light blue color with this button info class here. If I just save the file, this is what we see. Basically this heading here, the price of our watch, and the button here. I'm gonna give some margin to the button to be a bit, to have some spacing between this text and the button. I'm just giving it a margin of 2. That's basically how you give margins in Bootstrap, by just writing m dash, and then you can input numbers from 1 to 5, I think. Here we see some margins that the button has from the text above. We can actually make this price here to be bolded if we input some strong tags here and input the price inside of it. If I save the file, the price now is bolded as well. And the next thing I'm gonna do, let me just handle now the second column. We'll basically style this in a bit, but I'm gonna actually need an image to display here in this part. So what we will do firstly, I'm just gonna going to my project here, and I'm gonna create not a file, but a folder, an images folder to store our images. I basically have downloaded before a few images that we could use. So let me just drag and drop this in this images folder. Okay, so I'm just gonna rename them in order to access them a bit faster. I'm naming the first one image 1 and the second one image 2. And okay, I'm going back to our index.html file. I'm going to need an image element. In the source attribute, I'm going to need write the address of the image I'm going to input here, so which was images, the name of the folder, and then I'm inputting here the first image. We need the alternative attribute, which basically just where we basically just write an alternative, some text that is displayed when the image is not loaded in the web page for some kind of reason. So like image 1 photo or something. If I save the file now, I should basically see this image, which is a bit too big. And how we can actually fix it is I'm going to give to this image tag here a class of image1, and I'm going to style this in a separate CSS file, which I'm going to create right now. Going here to the project, writing a style.css file. Here we can just access the class with a dot and then img1. Opening up curly braces, I'm gonna give to this image a maximum width of 400 pixels and a maximum height of 400 pixels as well. I'm saving the file. What we're going to need to do now is going to link this CSS file to our HTML file. So with a link attribute, with a link element here, relation is a style sheet file, and then href here, the name of the file. Let me just close this tag. If I save the file now, we should see that the image is 400 pixels wide, and that's its height as well. So now that we have the image as well, we are gonna basically play around a bit with how this now looks. So in this row here, I'm gonna give to our elements a class of align items center, which basically just aligns the items in the center vertically. If I save the file, we should see now that the text is moved a bit below in the middle of its div element. And also I'm going to make the text to be, I'm going to give to this div a text center class to basically also center the text also horizontally. And we can see that the text now is also horizontally in the middle, even if we make the page bigger. And what is left for us to do now here is basically we're gonna play around with the classes of these divs. So I would want for our web page to have this column and this second column in a separate row when the screen is small, and then when its screen is like medium and above, I would want it to be in one line. So firstly, I'm going to give a column of 12 to these two columns, to these two divs, which basically means that the columns will take 12 out of 12 available spaces that the Bootstrap line has. If I save the file, we should see now that each of these columns is in a separate line, but we would want to change that if the screen is like medium and above. So by just writing this call dash medium here, MD, and I would actually want for the text to have 7 out of 11 spaces, available spaces, and the second column I would want it to have 5, so the remaining spaces 5 out of 12. So if I save the file, right now we don't see the change, but if we make the screen a bit bigger, when the screen reaches the medium size, we see now that this text takes 7 out of 12 spaces and the image takes 5 out of 12 available spaces. And that's basically how Bootstrap helps us to make our web page responsive in different screen sizes. Let me just minimize the page again. What is left for us to do here is that I'm actually going to create another class in our style.css file. I'm naming it section. I would actually want each section, we're gonna have 3 sections in our web page, to be as big as the view height, or basically the view that the page has. So I'm giving to this height, to this section class, a height of 100 view height. And you will see in a bit what this does. Let me go to the index page and give this class to our div here that has the row class. So section, if I save the file, now we should see that the page takes as much space as the whole view height. So the height of this section is like 100%, so to say. And that was basically it for the first section. Now, second section here, it will be similar to the first one, but it will just have an image and also some text, like describing the watch that we are presenting in our web page. So basically I'm just gonna copy this first section here and inputting it here, and I'm just gonna put the image first and then the text. So I'm cutting this part and inputting on the top. I'm just going to change here the class of the image because I'm making it a bit smaller. So I'm going to give a class to our image, and the image now will be image2. And the alternative attribute here will take image2 photo. If I save the file, now, yeah, we see the image is too big. So I'm just going to style it in our style.css. I'm just giving it the class of image2 and max width. I'm setting it to be 300 pixels and max height to be 300 pixels as well. And this is the image we're seeing. I also am gonna give a border radius to our image, which basically just rounds a bit the corners, and it will give it a shape of like a circle if I make the border radius here to 50%. As you can see, the image now has this basically this oval shape that you can see right here. Going back to our index.html file now, and what we're gonna have in the second column here is we'll have basically a couple of paragraphs explaining our product. So how we're gonna take the text for this, I'm just going to ChatGPT and telling it to give us a description for a watch to sell in a website. It will give us like some nice text, I would suggest. Okay, firstly, I'm just gonna have 2 paragraphs. Like the second one here. And also another one. I'd suggest it would be okay. It would be enough. I'm inputting it here. If I save the file now, we should see these 2 separate paragraphs. If we make the page also bigger, we can see that this section now as well has 100% of the height, so 100 view height, as we gave it also this section class. We see the image is on the left and the text is also centered horizontally and vertically. On the right not here, because the second section also took the same classes that the first section took, I would suggest this looks now okay. We see that when the screen reaches the medium size, then we have these two columns in the same line or row. And I would also just give some class to our images in our style.css file. So I'm making our images to have an opacity of 70%, but only when we hover over our images. So what this basically means is just it takes all of the image elements and specifies that when we hover over them, the opacity of our images will change to 70%. So as you can see here, if I just hover over the image, it just has this nice bit of feature that the opacity is a bit smaller. Okay, that was basically it also for the second section. So in our third section here, it will have also the basic structure, but with a different kind of content. So I'm just copying the last section again. And what I'm gonna actually input here, I'm basically gonna input like an icon and a paragraph. So usually in some web pages, you see this nice little icons at the end where basically you see specific details about the price, about the shipping, or about basically reviews of the product. So I'm gonna need to input some nice little icons in this section. Where I'm gonna get them is basically there is a web page called Font Awesome. And if I actually click first the Font Awesome library, I'm just gonna need to import this library just like we import the Bootstrap library. That's the same way we will import this library from this website to basically be able to input some nice icons in our web page. So I'm just copying the link tag here and I'm inputting it here in our head element. Basically just like exactly the same way we're importing Bootstrap. And now to search for the icons we would want, just go to the Font Awesome website here. And go to icons. I'm gonna search, let's say, for a star icon. Okay, I'm gonna take the first one. Here you see the HTML tag that you would need, and I'm inputting it here in our third section. This was our third section. I'm actually going to change the class of our third section because we will have two icons and two paragraphs. I'm going to make them to be, so firstly, when the screen is small, I'm going to leave it to have a whole row, and when the screen will be medium and above, I'm going to make it to have half of the space possible. And let me just input the icon here, save the file. If I go here, we should see this little icon, which I will change the size of it in a bit, but just as for now. Okay, let me just give a paragraph to this column, and I'm basically inputting some meaningless text there. I could also go to ChatGPT again and write something about good reviews of this website, but I'm just leaving it as it is just to save us some time. And I'm gonna go and find the second icon. Let me just search here for dollar icon. This dollar icon. And I'm going to input it here, and also another paragraph. Let me just save the file and go back to our web page. Here we see this icon, the paragraph, the icon and the paragraph again. And I'm just going to make the screen bigger. And as you see, if the screen has a medium size or more, these two columns are in one line and have the same proportion, so half of the space that the line takes. And what we could do here is I'm going to play around a bit with the spacing of these icons. So I'm gonna give them like a margin to the class of the icons. And I'm gonna give this margin to the second, to the icon, as actually not to the column. So these two icons have some margin with the text, and I'm actually gonna make these icons a bit bigger here in a style.css file. For us to change the size of our icons, we're gonna actually access the icon element with this, just with I, without any dot in the beginning. And we're gonna need to change the font size. So this is the property we're gonna need to adjust, and I'm setting it to like 40 pixels. And you can see that the icons now are a bit bigger and they look much better. I'm also gonna give them this hover, this effect when we hover over them to make the opacity to be 50%, let's say. Each time we hover over them, their opacity just changes a bit, and it's like a good little effect we can add in there. And that was basically it for the third section. Right now we are just gonna need to input a footer, and we're also gonna create like a simple and a quick about page. So just after our container ends in this, with this closing div tag here, we're gonna input a footer element. In here, what we're gonna need inside of it is a div tag, and here firstly I'm just gonna take like an h5 header to basically just input the name of our web page. We just left it stored, so just store in here, and then in a paragraph tag, usually here we see this copyright, the year, this C like icon that we can basically take with an HTML entity, which is written with like this @ sign. You get this C for copyright symbol here, and then a dash and like, let's say store.com, like the address of the website. And down below we're gonna basically, what we're gonna input here as well is like an unordered list with some links to our, let's say, to our social networks. So I'm just taking like a UL here, and UL, we're gonna take 3 list elements actually, but let me just input all of this text in the middle by just giving to our div here a class of text center. So we see the footer is now on the center of our page. To style our list with Bootstrap classes, I'm going to need to give a class to our UL element to be list inline, so that the list elements are in one line horizontally, and then each of our list elements will just take a class of list inline items. So basically inside each list element we'll take an anchor tag, where basically it will link to like our social network page, and this anchor basically in between will have an icon which will again take from the Font Awesome website. So this anchor will basically need to take like an href attribute, and let me just go to YouTube and just take its address in here, put it here in the href attribute, and inside of this anchor tag we're going to take like an icon from the Font Awesome website, let's say YouTube here. I'm gonna take this icon and just input it in the middle of these anchor tags. If I save the file now, you will see this nice icon of YouTube. So the lists now will be ordered horizontally. Let me just copy this list here, this list element, and put it down below. And the difference here is the, oh sorry, I forgot to tell you that if we click on this YouTube icon now, we will be redirected to YouTube actually, since we linked our anchor to the YouTube's URL. And yeah, that's basically how it works. Now if I'm gonna change the href attribute of the anchor tag in the second list item to facebook.com, and now I'm just gonna need to import the Font Awesome icon. So let's just write Facebook here. I'm taking this one, it seems a bit old, but yeah, basically I'm just gonna need to, as you can see here, how the text, how the icon looks like. I'm just gonna need to substitute this with Facebook. And if I go to our web page, we see the Facebook icon here. If I click on it, we'll be redirected to the Facebook page. And basically the error that we are doing here is that we gave it a wrong class. As we can see, the icons are listed vertically, which they should have been listed horizontally, because the class here should be list inline item, not items. If I save the file, we see now that they are displayed horizontally. Let me just copy this again and input another icon, let's say for our Instagram page. I'm changing the anchor href attribute, so Instagram here, and I'm guessing the icon should be, the icon's name should be FA Instagram here. If I save the file, here we see the Instagram icon. And if we click on it now, we go to the Instagram's web page. And we can actually also add, like I forgot before, we can add an icon also to the name of our web page here on the navigation menu, because usually you see here a logo of the website, and I'm just gonna input like an icon for the store, like shopping, I know, something with like a shopping bag, I think would be okay. Just something else, well, it doesn't matter that much. Okay, I'm just taking the first one here, taking the icon, and I'm importing it actually here where we wrote the name of our web page in the beginning. And if I save the file, we should see now this icon. As you can also see, this icon is a bit too big, but this is only because we gave to all of our icons here in style.css like font size of 40 pixel. Could actually change that if we would want to. Let me just create a class for our icon to be small, like I small, and I'm giving it a font size of 20 pixels, I'm saying right now, and I'm giving this class to the icon, our icon here. So I small. So the icon now is small, as you can see. We could make it a bit bigger if we would want to, but I would suggest that looks okay. Let me just input it actually in the beginning of the text. So I'm putting the text afterwards. It seems a bit better right now. And the only thing for us to do now, as you can see, our first page, our home page is created. Looks okay, I would suggest. and it's responsive, as you can see. We can now just add like a plain page for our HTML, for our about page. So let me just go to our project files here. I'm gonna create an about.html page. HTML, if I can spell it correctly. Okay, and basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna import the whole of our HTML file here. I'm just copying it all and pasting it there for two reasons, because we're gonna need the navigation menu and the footer, but we would also just need to like input the links to our CSS, to our Bootstrap, to Phantasm website one by one. So I'm just saving us time, and I'm like copy pasting our entire index page, and here will basically just remove the text inside. So I'm just gonna leave the footer, the navigation menu, and all of the links. So if I save the file and I go to our about.html page, we're gonna need to link this. So we're gonna need to go to our navigation menu and link this about navigation item to our about page. So in this href attribute, I'm going to need to write about.html. And now if we click on the about, here we'll be redirected to our about page. And now we are going to actually, we see the footer is on top, but we have the navigation menu and the footer, and we're just going to input some main text there. So I'm going back to ChatGPT and like give me a description for an about page for a watches website, just to get some text to input there. I just hope we have something like our story, or I don't know why this is running so slowly. Okay, like I'm just going back here. I'm creating like a container div. Here I'm just gonna input like a header, an h2 header that basically says our story, and like paragraph with what I just copied. I'm gonna need to align everything here in the center, so I'm giving it this text center class, and I'm gonna just copy and paste the rest of the paragraph. I'm just taking another header, h2 header, saying our, I don't know what was written in there, our commitment, and then in the next paragraph, what I just copied, as we can see in here, the text is basically like is centered. Here we can give some padding from the top to the container with this M5, some margin from the top. We also could have just added something like why it choose us there, just like another header. Inside a paragraph. Why choose us? is a lot of text, but let's just take this part here, input it here, save the file just to fill it a bit, and yeah, it gives some padding to the heading and the paragraphs, but I'm just not handling that right now. So we can navigate now to the home page and to the about page. We see this was our main page, second section, these icons here, and the links in our footer. This brings us to the end of this project. I would suggest you to practice making this kind of websites in order to improve your skills in HTML, CSS, and Bootstrap. You can try to add different elements or styling to them so that you can practice what you know and even learn new things along the way. That was it for the day. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.